Hello and welcome to another episode of 48 Shades of Football, the most eagerly anticipated and avidly watched podcast on K-League football. Obviously, yes, exactly, thank you. Thank you very much, Gloria, for your intro music. This was obviously about the Iran fans who were banned from the stadium and banned from the club for having a slanderous banner, I believe it was.
A banner of slander.
A banner of slander, sorry, yes, let's get in the right order, yeah? Stevie, how are you feeling after being refused entry to your beloved new club?
Well, amazingly, it wasn't me that got banned.
It wasn't you. I mean,
I think I was number 5 on the list and they only banned the first 4. maybe next week.
Was that the half-time competition? They just picked like 4 lotto tickets out of a hat to find out who get banned.
Well, now I know what the camera was looking for in the half-time entertainment. It's like, who are we going to ban? Who are we going to ban? The good news is I might actually get a shirt because I think there'll be 4 of them on G-Market this week.
I guess, yeah. maybe at 30,000 won instead of 90, yeah?
Exactly.
So my name is Mark. I'll be your host for this evening. I'm joined with our 2 experts, Stevie and Paul. Across from me I have Stevie, who has seen his team now score 2 goals in their history. Also had 2 goals scored against them, and are currently sitting on 2 points. So a lot of 2s going on there, Stevie. Yeah.
10th out of 11.
10th out of 11 as well, it would seem. Thank you, Paul, for that.
I like to say they're maybe the only team in the world that's unbeaten in a competitive match in their history, and just skim over the fact that they've not won a game in their history.
You would like to see that, Stevie. Yeah, you would like to see that. So Stevie's here. He'll be giving us a review of the match he was at on Saturday later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm slightly confused tonight though, because normally Paul's sitting across from me looking sullen. I don't know who this other guy we've got in this week with a smile on his face is.
Is it Bobby Cullen?
I don't know, but what's happened? It's almost as if Seoul might have won a match.
No, come on, seriously.
No, I got lucky on the Hooker Hill on Saturday night.
Hooker Hill or Tranny Hill?
A smile on his face and an itch in his groin.
After that expose on my private life, I guess it's time to move on. On my right, I've got Mark, who was not on the booze lot for last week's podcast, so he was sort of a bit uninterested.
Lucid?
Yeah,
I think three people mailed in to say they finally found out what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But the other 97 still said they still
sounded exactly the same.
We have 100 listeners.
When
did that happen? Anyway, guys, so obviously, let's move on. Today's show is going to be a little bit, but we're going to have a review, first of all, of the K-League Classic, which was back this weekend after the international break.
What happened in the international game that we extensively previewed last week?
Nothing, to be honest.
So we're not going to bother reviewing it then.
Like Chaduri lasted 44 minutes of his farewell party. Song Hyun-min missed a penalty. His ex-girlfriend Mina was singing on SBS the show at the exact
same time.
Was
that the point you changed the channel?
That's when I changed the channel, yep.
Basically, it was so dire that after the game, me and Stevie decided to go up the hill.
So basically nothing happened, yeah. New Zealand had a goal chopped off for no reason. Korea scored a goal, 5 minutes left, blah, blah, blah. Let's move on, yeah?
Yeah.
Stevie will give us a review of the K-League Challenge from the weekend. Obviously, Seoul Eland scored again, didn't win, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. Again, we'll have a preview of the upcoming ACL games. The Korean teams are all obviously back in contention again this week, and we'll have a preview of next week's K-League Challenge, K-League Classic games. There's no challenge this weekend because we have the FA Cup, so we'll preview the FA Cup as well. And if we have time at the end, we'll maybe do some Q&A from some of our listeners. So that should be
both of them.
Both of them, yes. The one guy who's still listening after all this time, yeah. Okay. So first up,
we should basically ask him what his interest is and just tailor the show to him, right?
we did do that, didn't we? So first up, we have.
I think we're getting a call.
We are getting a call. Someone's calling. Maybe it's part 2 of our God. Yeah.
Our listeners calling in. Can you talk more about Mina?
What was she wearing? Anyway, let's move on. Paul, were you at any games this weekend? Any classic games? I think you were probably watching Seoul Jeju, I believe.
I was indeed, and I was drinking lightly this weekend, so I've actually retained memory of most of it. mean, obviously the big story this week was Park Ji-young's first appearance on
Was
Korea
indeed.
soil for how many in the K-League.
How many did he score?
He didn't score, but
Shockeroonie.
he came on at half-time. I have to say, I believe you were at the game as well, Mark. So
I was at the
I'm
game, yes.
sure you'll back me up on this. In the first half, Seoul were absolutely terrible.
Dire.
No ideas, nothing, no decent play, basically nothing. I mean, in the second,
A normal Seoul game.
in the second half, once Park came on, I think Seoul really showed a bit of life. They showed some decent play, a lot of pressure. They didn't make much of it until they got a lucky goal at the end.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the one I found that interesting was for the first maybe 15 minutes of the second half, they played tactic give it to Park.
Yeah.
Like every time someone got the ball that wasn't Park Ji-young, they just kind of like shot it up to Park Ji-young. Eventually, after that, they realised, okay, maybe there's more than just Park on the pitch, and they started kind of playing the ball about a little bit better than they had been doing previously. The goal was definitely fortuitous. Could have been an own goal at one point. I think the free kick came in
The Jeju guy headed it
on his own post,
headed it
yeah.
onto his own post. It rebounded back, and Everton reacted
Everton
quickest
scored, yeah.
and banged it in the net.
Something I did notice was Everton following in the Kayo book of goal celebrations by pounding the badge on his chest.
Although to be fair, he has actually been here more than a year now.
He has been with him on a year, but
More than a full year.
I also noticed this when I think it was Ulsan, Kim Shin-wook scored. I guess he's been with Ulsan for a long time, but I noticed a lot of kind of like badge kissing and like badge pounding from K-League players. Not really my biggest thing. I don't really like it, to be honest. I never like it when I was watching Celtic or other teams play.
You must have really hated watching Celtic then, because they were all at it all the time.
Well, most of them, yeah. Most of them.
I mean, basically, to sum up Saturday's game, in the first half, Seoul were crap.
They were terrible.
Jeju were not too bad. In the second half, Seoul had a lot of possession without being too effective. But, I mean, Park, obviously, he didn't score, but he made some decent runs. He was clearly a lot better than any of the other three guys they tried in that position this year. So,
I mean, he definitely worried the defence. I mean, I think that's all you can say.
yeah.
He ran at the defenders. He was there. He was a constant threat. Yeah, I mean, he did everything he could have done apart from scoring, and I think he was definitely the big difference. Had there been no Park Ji-young introduced, it would have finished nothing each.
Yeah, and word on the street is he's currently only about 70% fit, so you'd assume over playing a couple more matches, get him back up to 100% match fitness, then he'll be more effective. And
I've got to admit, I think over the weekend, given the flood of Rounders coverage, I don't think I actually saw any of the Seoul game at all. I'd have thought, given Park Ji-young was back, maybe it might have got a bit of a slot on the telly. And
I was surprised.
22,000 people there,
22,000
people.
which is a decent crowd. I'd have thought maybe a bit more, but
I mean,
22 is not bad for a.
It's almost
K-League
10,000 less than the Jeonbuk game, which was his official signing. I mean, obviously, Seoul Jeonbuk is a far bigger draw than Seoul Jeju, but still, I mean, 22,000. That was the biggest crowd of the weekend. I mean,
if you lop off, say, 1,000 or 2,000 Jeonbuk fans, and you lop off a few for the fact that Seoul have gone 3 losses for the start of the
give me
season.
a lop off 2,000 Jeonbuk fans. Like, can we actually do that? Because that would be quite good.
You could lop off their heads like they did tonight.
Yeah, Kevin, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
But I mean, when just before the start of the game, all the substitutes came out to the bench, and all the press photographers were milling around the bench trying to take photos of Park Ji-young, and so I think there was definitely a buzz about the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I just missed it.
He got a big
over the
cheer when
weekend,
he
I
came
just
on.
didn't see much of it.
Well, he got a patronising, sycophantic song when he came on, which was kind of annoying, to be honest. When he came on at the beginning of the second half, when the teams came out of the tunnel, he was in the team, replacing. I'm not sure actually. And like suddenly, the fans erupted into some kind of really annoying, kind of "Oh, you're amazing," "Oh, you're Park Ji-young" kind of song, which. To their credit, the ultras, the fans in N didn't actually join in with it. It was mostly coming from E and from the Tannoy announcer. It was a little bit kind of sickly, to be honest.
But I mean, obviously Park Ji-young was with Seoul up until
I
about
understand.
2009, right? And back then he was a very polarising player. There were those fans that really loved him, and there were those players there were those fans who sort of didn't really like him that much, and I was one of those. But it's amazing what difference 5 years can make. He goes away, we sell Dayan, he comes back, and suddenly we're so desperate for a striker that everyone's
I mean,
he's the new hope.
I get why they were doing it. I just felt it was a little bit kind of sickly, as I said.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit. But
I mean, I just thought there'd be more neutrals there. Maybe it was Park Ji-young's just not as big a draw as baseball.
Well,
I was anything that was seen.
Apparently not. No.
Was it the baseball, or was it the fact that Seoul Elam were playing at home on the same day?
Well, if it was anything, it was the baseball.
Was it baseball? Yes. I think so.
I don't think the 2,500 people at Jamsil were making a difference to anything.
But yeah, so that was the Seoul game. Paul, did you watch any other games this weekend? Any other K-League Classic games?
There was a distinct dearth of coverage on TV this weekend, so I have made an effort to watch all the highlights online.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You have a lot of time you kill.
Apparently there is a limit to the amount of porn on the internet, and I had to find something else to fill my day.
Your wife caught you.
Did your wife put the filter on there?
Yeah.
It's called a VPN, Paul. It works a treat.
I'm trying to think. I think the only classic game I saw was probably the Ulsan game, and the only thing I got from the Ulsan game is it looks like the Wookiee's back.
Yes.
He's up front. He's scoring goals. He's claiming the ones that go in off deflections off defenders.
I mean, the goal that was clearly his, that the second goal was an amazing header.
Yeah, it was
like a fantastic
good
header.
finish.
Yeah.
He also hit the bar at one point from the header.
He did.
It looked like he had 3 or 4 good chances actually. There was a couple he put past the post as well.
Yeah. I mean, he does look like he's being. I think he is the focal point of the Ulsan attack. I mean, I think it was interesting that I thought Jeprov had a kind of quieter game.
Yeah, didn't see much of him in the highlights.
He only played about an hour. He had one decent free kick, which he put slightly over the bar. But
he's a little bit quieter than he had been previously. But
the interesting thing about this match is that when I looked up the stats for it, it showed that Ulsan only had 42% of the possession, and Gwangju had 58%. And Ulsan had 12 shots, and Gwangju had 22 shots.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty.
Which stats site are you looking at?
You looking at like stats times 2? Wow.
K-League.com.
There hasn't been a single game in the K-League since its inception that's had that many shots.
That's a pretty amazing
K-League.com stats.
Are they counting every forward pass as a shot?
Ulsan had 12 shots, of which 6 were on target. Gwangju had 22 shots, of which 15 were on target. Ulsan scored twice, Gwangju didn't score at all.
So that would suggest that the Ulsan goalkeeper had an absolute fantastic match then, yeah?
He did make a couple of
saving
decent
saving
saves,
15 shots, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there was on
it.
the highlights there was a couple of good saves by Kim Song-gyu, but
I mean, he had a couple of
I
good
don't
saves.
remember having 15.
Well, if they'd shown all 15 shots, the highlights would have been longer than the 6 or 7 minutes that they were, right? So.
I do remember hearing several times Kim Song-gyu super save, Kim Song-gyu super save. So I guess
But that's pretty much every time he touches the ball now.
pretty much, yeah. But I mean, I think
Even for a goal kick, it's a super save.
yeah. I think from Ulsan's point of view, they had to win. It was like Jeonbuk winning on Saturday.
Is that Ulsan top of the league now?
Still top, back
Yeah.
top again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ulsan could be looking like they're potential title winners. I don't know. It's only 4 games in,
Yeah.
but
Well, you got to say if they've got
so far,
Wookie up front and Jeprov, if he's actually back to form,
then it's
that's
a
a pretty dangerous combination.
The Wookiee was very lively, but I mean, in the highlights, basically everything they showed from Ulsan was the Wookiee doing this, the Wookiee doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, won't the Wookiee be going to Germany in the close season anyway? Or the mid-season
If he keeps
break,
his
whatever?
form up, you'd have to
Doesn't
assume
win it,
perhaps.
so.
Possibly.
Or Stoke.
Or Stoke. Yeah. Or maybe if he puts his card right, maybe Celtic. You never know, yeah. But yeah, I mean, what about Saturday games? I watched Daejeon. Daejeon versus Songnam
There
on
was some kind of
Saturday.
mix up there because I looked at my phone and it looked like Songnam had scored more
4.
than 1 goal.
Yeah.
This was the game that last week we predicted was going to be a 0-0 draw.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
What happened?
There was 5 goals. It was pretty amazing. Like, I watched the game. Obviously, as Paul said, I went to Seoul versus Jeju. I was going to go to the Daejeon game, but I had to work on Saturday. My idea was to go to like Hannam University against, I think it was SKEMC or something, and then go to Daejeon Songnam, but unfortunately I got called into work. So on the subway I watched it on my phone. It was pretty amazing. Like Daejeon scored as I entered the subway car at World Cup Stadium, and when I departed the subway at Doksapion, it was 2-1 Songnam. So I think that was pretty much how quickly.
What's that, about 4 minutes or something?
Literally like 8, I think. Yeah. So I think that was quick. How kind of quick Daejeon surrendered their one goal lead. Yeah. Adriano's goal was pretty. I mean, it's a goal. I mean, but Park should have done far better in goals. Like he would have saved it 99% of the time. And then Kim Do-hyun for Songnam was just like amazing. He scored a hat trick. Obviously took home the match ball. Like he missed about another 3 or 4 pretty easy chances as well.
But
so
even the goals that he did score were basically more Daejeon defensive errors than his.
For the most part, yeah.
Of skill,
for the most part, I mean, Daejeon, can we say, are woeful.
A shower of.
There's a shower of rubbish. Like, they are
a shambles.
A shambles.
Yeah, I saw a few things from Daejeon fans online as well. It's just basically we're going down.
I mean, four matches into the season, and already you're thinking, will they get a point? I don't think so. I can't even see them get a point.
I mean, one of the things some of the guys said, and I kind of suggest it as well, is that it looks like their main signing for the close season was to sign up Adriano again.
Yeah.
And it looks as if maybe what they've done is blown the budget to keep Adriano, thinking he's going to get his 20 goals. But the rest of the squad is dire.
Yeah.
And they've got one man, and without service, your striker's not going to do much.
Yeah.
So you think maybe they've made a mistake and they should have just let Adriano go and signed 3 or 4 guys who are going to be classic standard. What they've done is put all their eggs in a basket that's... you never know.
I mean, the thing is, they just looked... Okay, they took the lead, but even before that, Songnam could have been 2-0 up, should have been 2-0 up. I mean, a better team than Songnam would have been 2-0 up. And they took the lead, and I think they literally held on to the lead for 3 minutes. That was like one subway stop. Then it was one each. I mean, they're a poor lot. They're a poor lot, and you have to worry that how bad can it actually get.
Well, they've played 4, lost 4 now.
Yeah, but I mean,
they've scored one
conceded
goal,
about 12.
conceded a lot.
Yeah, the goal difference is like -11 or -12. I mean, it's kind of farcical, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you could understand it if they were losing 4 goals to Ulsan or Jeonbuk, but when you're losing 5 goals to Jeju and then 4 goals to Songnam,
yeah, and they haven't even played.
That's a struggle.
Yeah, they haven't played.
They haven't really played the big teams yet.
But they haven't played Jeonbuk, Ulsan, or Suwon yet. So what's going to happen when they play those 3 teams?
Yeah.
Do they lose like 12
They're coming up to
goals?
Seoul in about 10 days' time, right?
Big teams.
So they'll probably get a point.
Big teams,
till
It could be their first point of the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, big teams are not kind of sitting 1 point above them in the table, yeah?
3
points above.
Sorry, 1 place above them. Sorry, 1 place.
2 places above them.
Oh, maybe 2 now, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well
Seoul
done.
are out of the relegation zone now.
Yeah, really, yeah.
I think
Wow,
it's
Park Ju-young.
currently occupied by Incheon and Daejeon.
Oh, well, talking about Incheon, they're also not looking very smart, are they?
They're looking like Incheon, aren't they, really?
Well, normally Incheon kind of bore themselves to a mid-table position, but it looks like they're boring themselves to a potential relegation this season.
The thing is, like, I mean, Incheon were atrocious last season. Like, the beginning of last season, they went, I think we touched on this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, they went like 15 games without a win. This season, I mean, they lost to the Ajuma's favourite, Jeonnam, this weekend. They've been pretty poor so far this season. They lost to Suwon with a last-minute goal like last week or 2 weeks ago. Sorry. They drew against Gwangju, which at that point in time looked like a terrible result. Now it looks like a 0.1 for Incheon, to be honest. I mean they're a bad team. Like, I love how they've signed Kevin Orris, and he's obviously like their main man, the everything that they have in their team. And if he doesn't play, they don't play at all. I think Incheon are going to be sitting at the bottom of the table coming into the season. Not bottom, but
a bit of a weird one, because you'd have thought Kevin would have had some goals in him.
You'd have thought so, yeah.
I don't know about Lee Chun-soo if he's still the player that he was. But you think
he came on at half time in this game.
Did he? Okay, but you'd think it's still at least with Lee Chun-soo and Kevin. You'd think there'd be some goals in there. I know Seo Ki-hyun quit before the season started, so
saw the writing on the wall, obviously.
I don't know if he'd been watching pre-season training and just thought, I don't need another season of this, I'm quitting.
Well, like apparently the bringing on of Lee Chun-soo was a huge controversial thing because he used to play with John Nam and didn't leave in very good terms, I think.
Right, well, I didn't see any of the games, but 1-0, I guess it wasn't very exciting.
I mean, as I said, I watched the highlights. The goal that John Nam scored was a shot from outside the area which took a deflection off the Incheon defender and sort of wrong-footed the goalie, so it could quite easily have been a 0-0. Overall, John Nam had 12 shots and Incheon had 11, but Incheon didn't even manage a single shot on target, so it's looking a bit grim.
I mean, I watched the first
bloody
half.
Good stats there, Paul. It's almost like you're reading them off a post-it note.
You would think so, yeah. With like really small handwriting as well. So I'm not reading them off the post-it note.
The one thing I would note about Cheonnam this season is they've only conceded 1 goal in their opening 4 games, and coincidentally they do have FC Seoul's left back and right back playing for them. So.
Oh my God!
Anyway, FC Seoul's left back and right back. If Cheonnam started the army team trick as well now.
Ex left back, ex right back.
One thing I did find interesting about the Jeonnam game was that I don't think there was very many people there. Maybe like 4,000 or something. But they seem to have like about 1,500 Ajumas in yellow hats and yellow Jeonnam tops, like waving those inflatable, like kind of annoying sticks. I've no idea why they were there.
If they had the inflatable sticks, they presumably got lost on the way to a baseball game.
I guess, yeah. Or maybe they were given them on the way into the stadium.
I mean, that's normally a baseball.
It's not my baseball thing, yeah. I mean, I find it quite interesting that, I mean, Jeonnam are maybe that desperate for fans that
maybe
they're
they
going
thought
down.
you were going to be there, Mark.
Oh, you know, I mean, maybe thought I was going to be there.
I know that there's 1,500 Ajumas just follow you around the country.
Give me the half-time trot entertainment, do you know what I mean? But I think it was interesting. I mean, usually K-League fans are kind of the young persuasion as opposed to of the Ajuma persuasion. So yeah, I wonder if this is maybe like a new technique. Like John Book have their high school rulers. Jeonnam have their like kind of senior citizen.
Maybe there's
crowds.
just a hierarchy for a higher crowd.
I guess maybe yeah.
Maybe the Ajumas are cheaper than the high school girls.
Maybe
It's like, Ajumas come at 1,001 an hour. If you can go up to 1,500, we can get you a high school girl.
Is it that scene from Schindler's List? You know what I mean? Well, Poles cost more.
If you want a university guy, it's going to go 3,000. So
we can get like 10 Ajumas for the same price. So the last game to have a look at is the Suwon game. Suwon played Busan. I see the interesting fact for this game was that Suwon won the game again in the last minute. This is like the second week they beat Busan. They beat Incheon, 2-1 I think a couple of weeks ago in the last minute, and they've obviously like beaten Busan again in the last minute. Busan did have a man sent off. I think maybe halfway through the second half. I think
they had a man sent off just before half time.
Before half time, okay.
Yeah. And Busan also missed a penalty halfway through the second half.
They did, yes.
So you have to say it's a pretty poor result for Suwon, that it took them that long to get the win.
I mean, any result for Suwon's a poor result in my book.
Win, lose or draw.
Win, lose or draw, yeah. But I think, it does set them up well for the ACL, which is coming up later. But I mean, yeah, teams should play to the 90th minute. They should play until the final whistle, and I think that's what Suwon do.
I mean, Suwon are actually doing all right. They're sitting just a point off the top.
Yeah.
And normally they're not that great starters. They're a bit of touch of the souls about them.
But
so
they have
to be that close to the top 4 games in. It's probably
they have the 3 home games out of 4.
Yeah.
I mean, that big brown envelope is still sitting on the KFA's desk. Yeah. But you still have to win your games that when they're put in front of you, I guess. Yeah. And they win 2 in the 92nd minute, in the 93rd minute. It does show that they're not going to give up easily. I mean, they're going to keep pushing, I guess, the kind of teams above them. It'll be interesting once to play a good team. I mean, they lost to Pohang They've played pretty much the kind of lower teams since then. Once they come up against like a John Book or an Ulsan, it'll be interesting.
Or a Seoul in 2 weeks' time.
They have the super match in 2 weeks' time again on our team that's kind of low on the table. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in that game.
I think you could say that for every team though. It's 4 games in, you've got to see what happens to all of them.
It's way too early to make any judgment calls. But
we're trying to fill 50 minutes of podcast.
But I want to make them anyway, and I hate Suwon, so I'm going to make one. So, but yeah, I mean, like they're fair play to Suwon. They don't give up. Same against Urawa and the ACL. They don't give up. They keep playing, and they're getting their just rewards.
But the other last game that we never talked about was the Jeonbuk game, right? Jeonbuk Pohang.
Well, we kind of mentioned that in the intro that they won, and really that's all I have to say about it.
Is that it? Jeonbuk won?
Jeonbuk won, again, as usual. Let's move on, yeah? They beat Pohang, huge game. They won.
Was there anything to report? I never saw any of the game.
I didn't see any of it at all.
I watched the highlights.
And you're sighing.
Yeah, possession was an even 50-50 split.
That's easy for you to say.
The number of shots was pretty similar.
When you say you watched the highlights, did you just click on the page in K-League?
He's like stats. Okay, numbers. Give me numbers for the podcast, yeah?
I did actually watch the YouTube highlights from Sport TV. The goal itself was an Idonga cross which came in, and Edu just banged in his 4th goal of the season.
Yeah, Edu again.
On the 6-yard line. It was pretty simple tapping for him.
He's doing really well since he's coming back to Jeonbuk, yeah?
The one thing of note for me was the Austrian guy Moritz, who we talked about.
Did he play?
He came on as a second half substitute.
Because he didn't play the last 2 games, yeah?
No, he came on as a second half substitute, and he got booked in the 93rd minute for elbowing some.
I'm not surprised.
Like, he sort of.
It's your theory that he's a mental.
He's crazy. He literally is one of the craziest players I've seen in the K-League.
I don't think he could have complained if he got a red card, to be honest.
Yeah,
he sort of clattered into one Jeonbuk guy and then sort of rebounded off and went, alright, I didn't get him.
It's interesting to see what does and doesn't get you a red card in the K-League, and I guess we'll come on to that later when I get fully venting about the Elan game.
You guys can't see this, but this is the world's smallest violin playing just for Stevie. Na 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 na. Anyway, so that's the K-League Classic finished. Let's move on to Stevie's chip on his shoulder, and let's review the K-League challenge for the weekend. Stevie, your team didn't win again. What happened?
Well, still unbeaten. Didn't win again.
Didn't win again. What happened?
I guess. Well, let's not talk about that first. Let's talk about the champions, Sangju, who yet again won 3-1. So, do we just award them the trophy now, or do we actually have to wait until it's mathematically impossible for somebody to beat them?
I think we give it to them now.
They do have form for playing half a season and dropping out, so you should wait to see if they can complete their matches or not.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they're going to lose some of their squad at some point towards the end of the season, but they've still got the guys who are there, like Yi Yong and the other 3 or 4 guys, national guys who've joined them this season. I think they're going to be difficult to beat, and they had a game against Gyeongnam this weekend. It looked as if it was going to be tight.
Their nearest title challengers, right?
Well, you'd think they're the two relegated teams from last season. You'd think they were the 2 that are probably going to be the favourites to go up again. It looked as if it was tight, but in the end it was 3-1 to Sangju. From a Gyeongnam point of view, I guess the thing that will stick in their throats is 2 of the Sangju goal scorers are actually contracted to Gyeongnam. The guy who scored first and the guy who scored last are Gyeongnam players.
That's kind of annoying.
So you kind of think, we're paying for these guys to beat us.
But they did get 2 of Sangju's goals were quite late on.
Well, they were late on. I think one of them was a penalty as well. So it was probably not the 3-1 that the result suggests it is.
Closer than the
probably closer, yeah. But still, you've got to say 3-1 away to the other relegated team. It looks like Sangju are going to pretty much romp the league. I'm not looking forward to the next Elan game, which is Sangju away in the league.
Will there be any fans left, or will they all be banned by that time?
Well, I think they're slowly weeding out anybody that might shout anything.
Is that a midweek game or is that a weekend game?
It's a midweek. Well, there's no challenge this weekend on the 11th because they're all playing the FA Cup. So the games have been moved to the 15th. So I guess we'll talk about that maybe next week in the podcast. But I mean, Sangju look as if they're walking it. Anyang looked as if they were going to be a good challenger, but they had a bit of a shock. Yeah, 2-1 at home to Goyang. is not title form. Again, Anyang had taken the lead and then Go Yang scored 2. But yeah, you got to say, Go Yang a bit of a surprise package. They were actually top of the league on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, like they're joint top right now with Sangju and Suwon. Their goal difference is not anywhere near as good as Sangju's, obviously.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how Go Yang do. Obviously, we'll have the live podcast there as well on
Monday, we're all going to be
Monday,
at the Go
April
Yang
20th. Yeah.
If anyone wants to join us on the 20th, we'll be at Koyang podcasting live.
We will be. We'll be there.
We'll be signing signatures on boobs, and if anyone's so inclined.
And
I'll get my boobs out, Paul, if you want to sign them.
And other body parts as well, because I don't want to alienate the audience here, Paul.
I'm not signing anyone's penis.
I think the one thing about Go Yang, though, is probably people kind of write them off, but they weren't that far away from the business end last season. I think they missed out in the playoffs by a couple of points. They were just behind, because there was that whole group of teams that had like 3 points, within 3 points of the playoffs. And Suwon just missed out, Anyang just missed out, and Go Yang as well were only a couple of points behind. The only ones that were really left behind were Cheongju and Bucheon.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
and speaking of Bucheon, we thought maybe the tide had turned for Bucheon,
but no,
but obviously not.
So Gangwon beat Bucheon 4-0 in Gangwon.
I mean, the good news for Bucheon was Almir started the game and he played the full 90
that's good
minutes.
News. Oh, I guess it's good news.
And the bad news is Gangwon beat them 4-0. I'm not saying those two things are connected, but you do the sums.
But a little bit of a gangbang there, I guess, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like Gangwon 4-0, Bucheon horrendous again. I think they're at home on the 15th in the next game.
But they are still above Seoul Eland, so
yeah, still above Seoul Eland. Yes.
I think Bucheon's next game is actually against Cheongju, so maybe they've got a chance.
I think it's against Cheongju. I think
yeah.
At home, yeah. So Stevie, it brings us to the main point, the main reason why we have this podcast.
I'm not allowed to swear, am I?
The main reason why anyone even listens to this podcast. How was the Seoul Eland 1-1 draw with who are you playing? Daegu?
Can I just check what sweary words I'm allowed to use?
Nothing has a C, a U, an N, or a T, but anything that has a W and an anchor after it is fine.
Well, let's just say
the referee's out.
The referee's an anchor.
The referee's an anchor.
How do I put this without getting the whole thing switched off? The referee was a sexual intercoursing lady part.
Was he an illegitimate child wearing a dark colour?
Yes.
Was he a Mason?
Well, I've seen a few K-League games in my time. I've never seen such a bad refereeing performance. It was back to the dark old days of Gaza at Ibrox when he could just do whatever he wanted without the referee touching him. I have no idea what the referee was doing. From the start of the match for the full 90 minutes, he was just absolutely hopeless. I don't even think it was a cheat, because a cheat would have done a better job at disguising it. Yeah. You know, if it was a cheat, he would have been trying to be shy about it. Yeah. But it was just absolutely hopeless. He booked Lee Jae-an for his first foul. After a Daegu guy had cemented someone, he gave nothing, and Lee Jae-an pulled someone's shirt and was like, okay, you're booked for that. The second half, I think it's 2 minutes into the second half, Lee Jae-an takes 11 seconds to take a throw-in, and he gets a second booking for time wasting.
That's what
he was booked for time wasting for taking 11. I had no idea at the game what he'd been sent off for, and the whole team just went crazy. Everybody was like, "What the hell? Why are you sending me? Why? What?" And all night, I mean, you saw me. I was on Twitter. I was asking Mark Rennie, like, "Why the hell was Lee Jae-an sent off?" And a couple of Korean guys were like, "He was sent off for taking too long at the throw-in." So I actually went back and watched the highlights. He took 11 seconds. Wow. From the time the ball went out to the time the referee blew his whistle to book Lee Jae-an was 11 seconds. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to check this out. So I looked how long it took. I think it was Leo who took the throw-in for Daeju's goal. 14 seconds. It took him to take the throw-in that led to their goal. About 6 minutes into injury time. Amount of injury time that even Fergie would have been blushing. So this guy, there's a few tinfoil hat wearers out there in forum land who think that the Chaebol teams get every decision. Watch that game. Every single decision went to Daegu. I've no idea why. The only thing I can think is maybe GS have bribed them, because Daegu can't afford to bribe the ref.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, Elan seemed to get most of the of the kind of 50-50s last game that they can.
I think you could have made a case to say maybe the referee was favouring Eland last week, or maybe the 50-50s were going their way. But this week it was crazy.
I've never heard of anyone actually being sent off for time wasting a throw-in.
And it was our throw-in and our attacking throw-in about a minute and a half into the second half. And I think, even when you watch the highlights, you can't see what actually happened. I think the only thing I can guess is E.J. Ans picked up the ball, stood there for 10 seconds, and then threw it to the other guy to take a throw-in. And the referee's blown his whistle and said, right, you're getting booked for that. But it makes no sense. And all throughout the game as well, the whole thing was a shambles. I was absolutely losing my rag. There's probably footage of me in the highlights.
I think there is.
So he took the throw in, and the referee blew his whistle.
If you look at the highlights, what happens is the goalkeeper slices a clearance out.
Yeah.
And 11 seconds later, the referee blows his whistle, and the camera cuts back to E.J. An going, why? Why are you booking me? And there's somebody else who's actually taking the throw in.
Yeah.
So he took it.
I think what's happened is he's picked up the ball, stood there for 8 seconds or 9 seconds, thrown it to the guy who's actually going to take the throw in, and the referees went, that's time wasting, I'm going to book you.
And the score was 1-0 at that point?
The score was 1-0 to Eland at that point. And I think as well, maybe the referee didn't even realise he'd booked him before, because there was such a big gap between the yellow and the red, that you kind of think he's gone,
oh shit, I've done this already, yeah?
Yeah, and then it's been like, but then he just continued for the whole rest of the second half to make ridiculous decisions. Im Won Taek was his name. I've made a note. I want to see where he's refereeing next week, or where he lives, if anybody knows. If anybody knows where Im Won Taek lives, it's at K-League_podcast.
Yes, apparently yes.
48 shades of football at gmail.com.
Are you sure that you're not a Celtic fan?
I mean,
well, if you'd done that in Scotland, you'd be looking for new windows.
You would be, yes, exactly, yeah. Exactly.
Interestingly
enough, that coin on your forehead.
Interestingly enough, the K-League have introduced a referee assessment system this season where they're going to promote certain referees that get good assessments, and they're going to relegate.
Well, yeah, but thought this before, yeah.
So maybe this guy won't be around too much longer.
No, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the whole thing was a story of the referee. I mean, the first half, Eland absolutely pummeled Daegu. It was all Eland. Should have probably scored more than one goal, and maybe that's what you can blame them for. You know, if they'd been 2-0 up and they lost a guy, they could have shut up shop.
Yeah.
But the way it went down, to lose a man for no reason a minute into the second half, and then at that point it really became kind of, well, let's just put up the shutters at the back and hope we can keep them out.
Yeah.
Daegu looked a lot better in the second half when they had more space and they had a man short. To be honest, Ryan Johnson up front for us, I'm guessing he was maybe carrying an injury. He looked really immobile. He couldn't run. He was kind of holding his back like a 65-year-old guy trying to play football.
Like a man with a story made talk up his ass.
Bobby Cullen never played. Tarabai never played.
So why did Bobby Cullen not play?
Well, the story I heard, Bobby Cullen had a cold or a sore throat or something. Tarabai apparently had an injury as well.
Okay.
Bobby Cullen wasn't in the stadium. I couldn't see him around, so I'm guessing maybe if he had a cold, they said stay home. Yeah, Tarabai was there, but he had his suit on.
That's kind of Football Manager-esque, isn't it?
If he had a cold in Korea, he probably went to hospital to get a drip.
To get a vitamin
C shot in his left buttock.
He is half Japanese, so I guess he probably would have been.
But maybe there was, I don't know, maybe there was something with Johnson. It was like, well, you're the fittest of the three, so you're going to have to play. But when you had Johnson up front on his own, really nothing was happening. It was just everything was coming back. Whenever they cleared it, everything was coming back. I mean, the defenders did a really good job, and to lose a goal, it was 5 minutes into injury time. I think they reported it at 93, but it was more than that. It was 5 minutes into injury time that just never existed.
So we watched Daegu play Bucheon at the Hello Venus game.
Is that the official name?
As it shall henceforth be known.
That's the official name. They played reasonably well second half in that match as well. Do you think Daegu deserved a draw? Do you think? I mean, refereeing aside, do you think Daegu deserved?
The balance of play, probably a draw is a fair result. But just the way it happened and the way it went down with the referee and everything else, and you could tell the guys at the end, the Elan guys at the end, were just absolutely gutted because they knew that they should have won that game.
Okay.
And if there had been a referee who was even 10% competent, then they would have won that game. But got to give a shout out to big Carlisle Mitchell at the back. He was an absolute rock. He looked shaky as hell in the first game.
He did look pretty bad in the
But
first game.
the second game, he was everything that came in. He was there, getting it away. Got to give him a shout out. It's
So, like,
absolutely
your next
fantastic.
game is against is away to Sangju. How are you feeling?
Not confident given what Sangju have been doing, but I mean, Eland have got good players, but the way they reacted at the end, you've got to say, I think the pressure of being a new team and the expectation of them is actually taking a toll on them. Because at the end, when they lost that last kick goal, it was kind of Carlisle Mitchell was down on the ground, kind of like, I can't believe this has happened, and Kim Young Kwang was kind of covering his eyes, giving it, I'm not crying, honest.
It was Easter for Kim Young Kwan, to be honest. He was probably just thinking, oh my God, he rises tomorrow.
Yeah, but you could kind of tell at the end of it, like, they'd given their all, and maybe the pressure is affecting those guys as well, just the expectation.
Last week we mentioned that Martin Rennie was kind of sitting on the sides, not doing much. Was he a bit more animated this week?
He was certainly out and about a bit more. He was out and about. He had Kevin shouting at the team. He wasn't losing his rag. I guess he's not the kind of guy.
Kevin the ferret on
Kevin the translator. Yes, he wasn't losing the rag. So I guess he's maybe not that kind of guy. But he was a bit more active. I think some of his comments after the game as well were kind of saying, "Can't believe we were down to 10 men." So maybe that's as far as he's allowed to go, to actually say the referee was absolutely hopeless. Well, the one group, I should say, not the people, but the one group that was more active with the fans, and maybe it was the referee that was doing that as well, but there was a few chants.
Listen to the podcast, taking in what we said last week.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you listen to the highlights that are on the internet or whatever, you'll actually hear, when the Daegu guys were taking corners, throw-ins, whatever, there was meaty boos getting out and some chants.
Did they?
Yeah, there was actually some noise, and I mean, maybe a lot of it was from me. But the referee was taking pelters, and maybe that in the long run it might help that they've actually got an enemy there that spurred them into a bit of voice.
And last question about this game: was there any media update from you? Were people any cameras shoved in your face? Any let's be having ya?
Oh, the cameras were out in force. I think it was the official photographer had his camera shoved up my nose for most of the game, and I think I was promoting those dreadful hot dogs at one point as well.
Well, in a very erotic sort of deep throated.
No, I was just like, this guy's buying. I think there's a picture of me somewhere going, this guy's buying a hot dog, I'm not. And there was an Ajima that accosted me in the entranceway, trying to tell me that she was a Seoul fan, I think, but
so
other than that, I was very popular.
Cool. So that was the challenge review. Obviously,
have we done all the games, or are we just doing the ones that are worth doing?
Just the ones that are worth doing, yeah.
Yeah, well, Cheongju lost. No
Cheongju
surprise.
lost to Suwon, yep. I think that's the only one left. Okay, so that was the K-League Challenge reviewed, mostly by Stevie, very eloquently as well. Before we move on...
He's the only guy that gives a shit about... he gives a...
Yep.
That was how eloquently it was.
A crap. Toss.
You were fine with
shit.
I think you were fine with shit there, Paul.
He's the only guy that gives a damn about it.
Yep. Before we move on, I want to say a quick shout out to the local GS25 salesman who should win Salesman of the Year award, because every time Paul goes out to buy 2 beers, he comes back with 4.
And every time he goes out to buy 4, he comes back with 8.
So the guy is obviously like the world's best salesman, yeah?
Came back with 9 tonight.
As opposed to Paul being an alcoholic.
Well, that too.
That too, yeah.
They're going to wonder why there's a huge spike in Carlsberg sale from that one branch, right?
Yeah. But I think, one thing as well to have a look at, or a little bit of a talk about, was the attendances this weekend. I know Paul has a post-it note full of numbers that we're going to try and not have him read. But anyway...
so at the Seoul game there were 22,000 people.
Oh, well done, Paul. Thank you for that one.
Which was the highest attendance this week.
It was, yes, it was. Paul, tell us the lowest attendance, please, in that same voice.
The lowest attendance was at Daejeon, where there were 1,441 people.
Fantastic. So...
That's pretty bad, actually. For
it's pretty shit, isn't it?
If the Daejeon fans given up that, usually they're just like, because what was their Was it 10,000 or
No,
12,000?
it was a ridiculous amount.
Dude, they've seen 12 goals conceded and 1 goal scored this whole season.
Well, no, because they haven't been at the away games.
But I think, like, I mean, the Daejeon Gwangju game wasn't there, like some ridiculous, like 17 or 18 or some stupid, like 1,000 people there. I mean, FC Seoul 22,000, reasonable crowd.
Okay, but I thought there'd been more given the
more.
PCY.
It's 22,000 typical crowd for a Saturday game, isn't it, for Seoul?
I guess, yeah. I mean, maybe once we move to the evening games,
Yeah.
you know, we'll get more people because like some
Yeah.
people actually have to work on Saturdays, like English teachers and other.
I mean, it's still
Sky
still
and
early
stuff.
days. It's hard to tell. You've had one probably really big attendance and one then. Well, the baseball season started, so I'm not going
Exactly.
to go. I noticed in the challenge, well, we lost 2,000 people in sport space of a week. It was four.
That's because they were at the Seoul game this week.
Well, it's four and a bit at the Anyang game, and it was 2.5, which was weirdly was less than the amount of tickets that were sold. So I think maybe the threat of rain had put people off actually going to the temporary seating or something.
Well, the threat of bands, maybe.
I mean, I don't know if they banned 1,000 people, but
Did you
the
get-
other one I noticed, Anyang's crowd went way down as well. I think
Yeah.
was it 2,000 at their game?
I think for me the most worrying crowd of the whole weekend was Suwon's crowd. I mean, like Suwon at home. Like, okay, I was against Busan, who are kind of like not the world's most like encouraging team to watch, but still, Suwon at home, 10,000. It's a pretty dire crowd. I mean, like Suwon were pulling average crowds last season of like 18, 20, so on.
I mean, yeah, they've had a decent start, so it's not like they're struggling at the bottom of the league.
Yeah, I mean,
But again, they've got a baseball team in Suwon now.
Kibas.
But they're doing dreadful as well. I think they're bottom of the table. They played 5 and lost 5, or played 6 and lost 6.
I mean, I have no idea. I mean, for me, baseball was like the game.
No, I just noticed that it was I think there was a Suwon
Right.
KT Wiz fan on Twitter
Yeah,
saying,
I mean, like, I mean, the way I remember is that baseball was a game that you played in PE when your PE teacher was too hungover to put the cones out. That's what I remember. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even.
And it was
sport.
called rounders.
It was called rounders back then as well.
and football was the game you played when your PE teacher was too hungover to actually put the
The bibs out.
that's out for fucking rounds.
So it's all the same team. Red guys on the left, blue guys on the right, you guys in the yellow, just whatever. But no, seriously though, I mean, like, it's not even a real sport, to be honest, in my opinion. But anyway,
Yeah, if you look at some of the baseball players and how fat they are, and well, Steve, you'd be a good baseball player, I think.
woo! Kitty's got claws.
I wish I was a baseball player. He was,
Probably earning more.
given the
than that,
K-pop
right?
stars that were turning out at the weekend to open the pitches of some of the games, I wish I was a baseball player.
Opening the pitches. Anyway,
Whatever the fuck they call it.
I have no idea.
Open their
But
legs.
I think it's quite interesting that the J League gets huge attendances, while the Japanese baseball still gets like large attendances as well. But in Korea, no one comes to the K League, and I think it's a worrying thing. I mean, like, we thought everything was like rosy in the K League garden when we had like 20,000 at Daegu and 30,000 at Sangam and so on. But it seems to be as if everyone now is beginning to get a little bit kind of bored by it all.
I think
and move
overall the
somewhere else.
attendances are still up, but it's all based on the big first weeks that they all
Yeah,
had.
exactly.
So
Yeah. So
we've,
I
got,
mean,
we've got to give them a few more weeks and see what plays out.
But definitely big opening weeks for everyone's home game, and then sort of
Well-
sinking down to a more natural level.
I'll tell you, one team that's not going to have a good attendance next week are our good friends Seoul Eland, because they've got an FA Cup game against, I think it's Sun Moon University. I'm not quite sure where the university actually is, but they're charging full price admission, even to season ticket holders and the Founders Club and everything. So you've got to pay 12,000 won to go and watch a university team at Leo Park. So I'm thinking there'll probably be maybe 100 people there, 200 people.
I guess, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Even at FC Seoul, once you've got your season ticket, you still get into every ACL game, every FA Cup game at home, any playoff games that there are. So
Yeah, good old
Martin,
Eland.
that
Worse-
won't do.
Eland, worse than GS. Sort it
I
out.
mean, do you think maybe Eland are thinking they won't have that many FA Cup games anyway?
No,
so
I think
no
Eland
point?
are not thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Do you think Martin's thinking, well, this is how we do it back home, so this is how we're going to do it here?
Actually, that's not true. I mean, back home, the first cup game of any season is usually free to a season ticket holder. In Scotland,
In Scotland,
anyway.
not in
Scotland,
England.
yeah. Yep. I mean, all the years I had
Yeah, I mean, whenever you buy a season ticket back home, it's
the first cup game was always free.
your home games are included.
The first home cup game was free.
Yeah.
Everything after that is not free. You have to pay after that.
Not in England.
Okay, so obviously this weekend we had some FA Cup games. The big news from the weekend was probably that Seoul United lost in their first round to a university team. I think it was Sanji University.
Well, actually, there was a whole bunch of K3 teams got knocked out. Chunam got knocked out by Koryo-dae, and Paju and Pocheon, who are actually probably two of the top 3 or 4 teams in the K3, got knocked out by Dangook University and Hanyang University. It was a cull of the K3 sides. Maybe the University League's not bad after all.
I guess it might not be that bad, yeah. One good thing was the Jung'an Mustang Chorus, my favourite named team.
So you still get a chance to go and see them?
They got through. I'm not sure who they play next round, but I'm sure they'll probably lose that one anyway. But they got through anyway. Hannam University from Daejeon, they also got through by beating...
And Hongdae got through?
Hongdae got through as well, yes.
Hongdae are through. They beat Wejeongbu.
They did actually, yes, which is pretty amazing as well. So yeah, I mean, a pretty good round for the university teams. Obviously now we have the challenge teams enter the fray. We've discussed a little bit already about how Eland are pricing their fans out of the game. We obviously, I think the biggest game of the whole lot has to be, I think it's like Gyeongnam versus...
Kangwon are at home to Gyeongnam, so that's probably the biggest. In terms of the teams, that's probably the biggest match of the round. There's a few that you kind of think there might be shocks. It'd be interesting to see how some of the university teams get on against kind of National League teams and
I mean, for the university teams, I mean, obviously they're full of the players who the stars of the future, right? They're the guys that mainly make up the draft.
Potentially. I mean, if you look at for the Elan squad, for example, the guys who are kind of on the bench, a lot of them are university guys who are playing university football last season. So you've got to think it should be at a reasonable standard. But
you'd think each university team probably has 1 or 2 decent players, followed by a bunch of guys who are supremely talented and would probably play non-league football back home.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to work out in Korea. Is like, what is the actual structure of the league? Is it?
Yeah.
Because you've got the Classic, that's your top league. The Challenge should be your second league. What is your third league? Is it K3? Is it National League? Is it the University League?
University League, yeah. And it's, I guess...
The FA Cup's the one kind of guide you get to tell.
Yeah.
And it looks like the University League may actually be the third best league in
I think so,
Korea.
yeah. They also, Bucheon at home as well. At the weekend they're playing Gimhae. Maybe a chance for them to get themselves back on track, or another chance for them to fall off track and get absolutely humped again. But hopefully, I think you would have to imagine that they would win that game. Anyang are at home as well. Eland, as we discussed, are at home. Suwon are at home. Ansan are at home.
It'll be interesting to see how Cheongju do, because Cheongju have got Kyunghee University, so that'll be... I mean, Cheongju are dreadful right now.
They are dreadful.
And that's maybe the one you'd look at and say, okay, potential for a shock there. A university team beating a challenge team,
could be a bit of a shock.
That would be a bit of a shocker.
But then, I mean, there was that, was it maybe 2004, 2005? When there was a university team that got all the way to the final, or all the way to
I think university teams have
semi-final?
put classic teams out in the past.
They have in the past. I remember there was I'm sure it was 2004. There was a university team that got all the way to the semi-final or the final.
Yeah.
Well,
whether or not, maybe the classic team puts kind of the reserves out and
maybe
underestimates the opposition. And
last year, FC Seoul played Yonsei University in the first round that they participated in, and it was far closer than it should have been. Again, didn't put the strongest team out, but
quarter-final last year, Songnam put a university team in the quarter-final because they played Jeonbuk in the semi-final. The round before that, they had a university team.
And maybe the only other talking point is nobody seems to know who actually won the game between Chunam Youngkwan and Koryo-dae, because everybody online says that Chunam won it 6-1. And the KFA insist that Koryo-dae won it 6-1.
Oh, really?
So even if you look at Soccerway, they've got Chunam Youngkwan in the next round of the fixtures. But the KFA tell us that Koryo-dae won it 6-1. So, and to be honest, I believe that versus Chunam Yongkwang, I'd be more likely to believe that Koryo-dae have actually won that 6-1.
Yeah, I would go with Koryo-dae as the likely winners, but we'll have to see.
But every online source quotes that as Chunam Yongkwang. Chunam Glory, as I like to call them, given our keeper.
So, like, who do you think will be the kind of the sacrificial lamb? Like, who do you think will like lose? What challenge team do you think is in the most danger? I reckon
from a non-challenge team.
From a non-challenge team, yeah. I reckon like Bucheon should beat Gimhae, but it is Bucheon. I think they might be for me. Bucheon are probably the ones in the most danger. I think of losing.
Probably
team.
depends how seriously the teams take it as well. I mean, if Eland were to field some of their reserve guys and not really try.
What, in their third game in their history? Well, you'd have to imagine they put a full squad out, yeah.
But yeah,
if we get
who knows?
If we get Martin out to the embassy on Friday night, get him topped up with the sauce, and maybe.
So what do you think?
I think the ones to me that look interesting, obviously, Gangwon Gyeongnam is interesting just as two K2 teams. Suwon versus Ulsan Maipo. That's challenge versus probably one of the best teams in the National League.
Yeah.
And probably a team that you would say would be more likely to be in the Challenge League than a Cheongju Hyunmo or Bucheon. Probably should be there. I think Ulsan, for whatever reason, just don't want to be in the K League.
So that could be a
having said that,
upset.
Ulsan are probably one of the. I mean, they're maybe the top National League side, so that'll be a good test for Suwon, who were previously National League and would probably have finished below Ulsan previously in their league.
So that's pretty much the FA Cup summed up, I reckon. So it's time to move on to the big boys, to the K-League Classic. We have a few interesting games and some very non-interesting games this weekend.
I think there's about 5 or 6 non-interesting games.
Yeah, there's quite a few, yeah. Paul, will you be going to Incheon on Sunday to see your boys, see if they can keep their run going?
They're on a charge now, aren't they?
I don't have a particularly good experience of going to the Sungi Arena. I've been 3 times. I've seen 2 losses and 1 win. So,
So please go.
Please go with us.
If I went with my mind, I'd say probably best not to go. But got nothing else on, so yeah, I'm going to go.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of looking at the fixtures and thinking there's not a big game that kind of jumps out at you. There's a lot of what you'd think were the top 6 against what you think are the bottom 6.
Yeah.
Ulsan should beat Daejeon.
Well, I mean, that's like saying tomorrow should follow today.
Indeed.
Everyone should beat Daejeon, right?
Songnam
Busan is not the game that you're going to say,
I will be there, I will be at the Songnam game.
It's not the game that's going to get 50,000 people suddenly supporting the K-League, is it?
Are we going to go for another 0-0 draw?
I think Songnam will win 1-0. I reckon 1-0 for Songnam. They're on a roll right now. They're like
Songnam are actually doing pretty well. Your man Wee Jo.
What can I say? Wee Jo is brilliant.
Wee Jo is actually doing bloody good.
He's putting the ball in the back of the net. I mean, Kim Do-hyun looks pretty good after his hat-trick. I think if Park can get a grip and goals and not, they kind of throw a ball in the back of the net. I mean, Fortress Tanchon, as it's called in the ACL.
Yeah, you fancy Songnam.
I thought it was Fortress Tanfield, because you like to compare it to bloody Liverpool's.
I don't think anyone does. But anyway, I mean, I think a lot depends on maybe the result in the ACL, which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, I think Songnam should win that one. Busan look a pretty poor bunch, to be honest. Jeju against Pohang.
Oh, Pohang.
It's got to be Pohang, isn't it?
It's got to be Pohang, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of those games you just think
Pohang were pretty poor against Jeonbuk.
They were poor, but they've got to beat Jeju.
Yeah, but Jeju are not Jeonbuk.
I mean, Jeju are Jeju are the orange FC Seoul these days.
I guess we'll see next week when we come back to do the review, won't we?
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, it's Pohang, isn't it? If you're putting the mortgage on a result, Pohang.
Imagine. I mean,
even Incheon Seoul, you got to say, if you're putting the mortgage on it,
it's got to be Seoul.
It's got to be Seoul.
It's got to be Seoul.
Got to be Seoul.
So buoyed by Park's return, so buoyed by their victory over Western Sydney Wanderers. Hopefully,
you've got to win. You've got to keep the momentum going.
They've got a game in Sydney on Tuesday night. So they'll presumably fly back Wednesday morning, arrive back Wednesday night. They're going to be quite knackered. If there's any time to play Seoul, it's now, surely. After a 6 hours trip to Sydney.
I don't know how you feel, Paul, wherever you fly, but when I fly back from like Scotland to Dubai to Korea, I can teach a class the next day without being.
I don't know if I could teach a class,
shattered.
but I reckon I could take on Incheon United.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't think flying from like Korea to Australia is going to have a real massive impact on whether or not Seoul trot out against Incheon on a Sunday as well.
Last year, when they went to Sydney for the semi-final of the Champions League, and they played Western Sydney again, and they came back, and the first match was Suwon at home, and that was one of the worst performances they put in that year.
But it's just the week.
The
But
only-
that's not. Should it really be? I mean, really flying to establish out of a footballer that you can't play. Like anyway. Anyway.
If you're sitting here predicting the game, you've got to say Seoul should beat
Could be
Incheon.
so. Could be so.
If
Yeah.
they don't beat Incheon,
The
bad
other
result.
thing to note is that per FC Seoul company policy, they go economy class for group games, and so they are going to be like cramped up in their little.
Is that on your post-it note again, Paul?
No, it's well known. The only thing to note is that Park Ji-young's not eligible to play in the Champions League, so he
The
presumably.
only thing you notice, because he's in it, this will not get cut.
Yeah. So let's move on. Yeah. Next up we have Jeonnam against Suwon.
So Suwon are going to win that.
You'd have to say that's a wee victory every day of the week.
Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Move on.
Yes.
Jeonnam have only conceded 1 goal this season, so it's not as cut and dried as you think it might be.
Oh, well, I mean, in the
I
K
guess,
League, it's
but-
never cut and dried. You can sit here and I think all of these games are fairly predictable. And when we come back here next week and review them, I'll be sitting here going, I got 4 of them wrong.
As usual.
Have you put in your predictions on the forum yet?
Not yet, but I'll say Ulsan should win it, Songnam should win it,
Seoul should win it.
Pohang should win it, Seoul should win it, Suwon should win it.
In the last game, which is Gwangju versus
Jeonbuk,
Jeonbuk.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
Jeonbuk, yeah.
Well-
But this weekend is a no-brainer
Yeah,
in the
so
Classic.
away win,
It's not
home
even
win.
worth going to the games.
But I mean, Gwangju have played Jeonbuk only a handful of times in their current form, and they've lost. Well, they've got 3 losses and a draw. So
Gwangju's bubbles burst.
you think?
Yeah. Next week it will be Bubble Pop. Bubble Pop by Hyuna. That's the intro music for next week.
I thought it was quite Korea.
Gwangju are on their way down. Okay, guys, that's pretty much us wrapped up the show for tonight. Our outro music for tonight is a little personal message from Stevie to the referee who was not very good in Steve's opinion at the match on Saturday with Eland and Daegu. This one is for you.